holograms and fellow Trekkies. My name is Ian Abraxas, and welcome to my second part of the Star Trek Antagonist tier list. As you can see, this is our current standings with the original series and movies antagonists. We have the next gen antagonist list that I thought were memorable coming up next. So just a refresher on the ground rules. Pretty much, I tried not to pick any one species or race. Also, it pretty much is just my opinion. Like, you're going to have to bear with me on this. It's just those that stood out to me. So, bear with me on this. So, I hope I don't have too many controversial opinions. But, hey, again, that's what tier lists do. Stir up some conversations and discourse. So, let's get the ball rolling, and let's start off with our first one, who probably is the most memorable because he was there at the beginning and he was there at the end. Our friend, the omnipotent Q. And I mean, what is there to say about Q that hasn't already been said, and where else could he possibly but go? Then, I mean, S rank. I mean, John Delancey beautifully played him in Encounter at Farpoint, the pilot episode of Next Gen, showed up numerous times throughout the series, was there at the series finale, All Good Things, would then pop up in the season 2 of Picard, which I'm just going to say it, made that season bearable. Season 2 of Picard, it gets a little rough in some spots, but seeing John Delancey there as Q, especially that emotional parting between him and Jean-Luc Picard, I will not lie, it brought tears to my eyes. No joke, no exaggeration. I legit just wept. I started weeping during that whole exchange. He is a wonderful character, and there's no other place for him but S. There's no other place for him but S. Again, something I will point out, they're not, when I put them on the bracket, they're not getting switched around to who's better or who isn't. It pretty much is just as they get put up, that's where they go. No one is better or the other. I'm not doing that kind of ranking. Okay. So moving on to our next antagonist that is memorable in Next Generation is Ormus, the so-called skin of evil. He claims he was cast off from an ancient superior race that cast off all of their darker thoughts, evil thoughts, where he is literally the, as he called it, skin of evil. A bit melodramatic, but the reason why he's memorable is in the first season, he kills off Tasha Yar, our, at that point, chief of security. And personally, I like Tasha, and for her to just go out just by essentially being backhanded by this creature for no reason other than he felt like it, and that's why he was doing all these awful things, is because he felt like it. He pulled Riker into himself, would antagonize Troy that he was keeping hostage in a crashed shuttle, until finally Picard confronted him and said, evil exists only to be, we do not fear you. So we will leave you be. We will not take you anywhere. We are done with you. Distracts him long enough to save Troy. He beams up, and our last image of him is literally just screaming. But I mean, so in terms of memorable points, they're up there because he does kill a main character, which for Star Trek, outside of the movies, the main character would sometimes come back that episode. Tasha stayed dead. Worf would take her place the next season, and we would only see Tasha pop up in an alternate reality, and then we would learn about that character's fate from another character coming up on this list. So Tasha stayed dead, which goes to show that, this character had points, but honestly, just as a character in himself, I think he's gotta be B. Like, I honestly conflicted myself in putting him in A because he killed Tasha, But to be perfectly honest, he doesn't pop up again. He outside of a Lower Decks cameo where the crew, the Lower Deckers, torment him, which fair. Yeah, he's literally just evil amalgamate. I think I said that word right. Anyway, so yeah, you could argue it, but so many other of these characters have exuded that dark energy that I don't think he lives up to them. Like Gary Mitchell, for example. I mean, Gary Mitchell to me is a better representation of absolute power corrupts absolutely and is a darker character. Yeah, or I mean, I would say he's better than the God in D tier, but he's a good villain, but not quite C, but he's not quite A. Moving on, we have the parasitic queen from Conspiracy, the tail end of TNG season 1. Okay, so the reason why this antagonist made the list, several reasons. One, a conspiracy, these parasites get inside Starfleet officers, where these little tail, they crawl in their mouths and sit right back here in the neck. Their little tails poking out. That's how you know they're infected. And they start moving people around, whatnot. They've killed people that get too close to the truth. The Enterprise is recalled to Earth, or the Enterprise goes to Earth to figure out what's going on. They discover this conspiracy. They take out some of the lower. They take out admirals and some other captains until finally they confront this Lieutenant Commander Remick, who is housing the Queen. They didn't know that, but it is one of the most graphic scenes, I'd argue, in 20th century Trek. Bar none, Riker and Picard literally phaser his head off. They show the skin vaporize and then his head explodes. And then this creature literally emerges out of his chest. It is just like, it stayed in my head since I seen it as a kid. And truly, the episode ends on a cliffhanger with you hearing the signal that they sent out to summon more of them. And it went nowhere. It goes nowhere. This is not resolved. We would later get the Borg because they became more interesting villains. So that wasn't the signal that was sent out, but apparently they do pop up in Expanded Universe and Star Trek Online, but they go nowhere. Like, the potential is there, and it's just not. It's just left on the writing room floor. Excuse me. So I mean, just for the fact that they came inches from succeeding, and still that scene lives rent free in my head, I gotta give it an A, because they legit came so very close, so very, very close. But also, again, just for the graphic nature of it, the fact that, again, they were at Starfleet HQ, no one suspected a thing. Like, there were 3 admirals, 4, I believe, moving people around. One Starfleet ship was confirmed destroyed, that was captained by Picard's friend. There was another Starfleet captain. So yeah, it truly was just like, oh, okay. Like, they posed a legitimate threat. They're not S rank, because again, it just went nowhere. But I gotta give them an A rank, just because, again, great episode, great antagonist, like, came very close to succeeding. Great scene, but just went nowhere. Next up, another season 1 villain, but this one popped up a couple more times. Data's brother, Lore. I'm just going to say it. Brent Spiner is a fantastic actor to portray Data as this emotionless android, to then play his brother, who has a full range, is also a sociopath. I mean, I always loved the interaction between the two characters. I love seeing the range of Brent Spiner. His first episode, I think, is a lot of fun. Data Lore, where he pops up and we introduced to the crystalline entity, and just seeing how dark lore is and what Data could have been is fascinating. He pop up again, where Dr. Soon offered Data the emotion chip, but also ended up summoning Lore, not realizing Lore was put back together. And then you see Brent Spiner as Data, Brent Spiner as Lore, Brent Spiner as Soon. It's from, I love Spiner's acting. And then we see him in the two-parter Descent, where he takes over some rogue Borg. And then, of course, he's gone. He's defeated. And then he pops up kind of in Picard Season 3. Which, again, love seeing the emotionless Data. And then Lore just being the sick, twisted individual that he is. I love Lore as a villain. He's kind of one note because he's just essentially dark Data. He doesn't really have any redeeming qualities. It's just the fun of watching Spiner act and just eat up the scene that he's in as Lore. So I think I gotta give him B. No, I'm kind of torn here. Because, again, just the 3 points he pops up in TNG are memorable. But, he has no redeeming qualities. It's just kind of mirrored Data in a way. B. Like, I do like him. He is a good villain. But, again, it's just dark Data. It's really all he is at the core of it. So, as much as I love Spiner acting as him, he is just dark Data. And again, I love that, but it doesn't go, it does, again, it just kind of like, that's just, oh, it's dark Data. It kind of gets revealed that he wants to kind of destroy the Federation, kind of and kind of get out of the way of organics in a way, but again, doesn't really go anywhere. But speaking of Data and Data's foes, we have one created specifically for him that honestly is a memorable episode, and it was a holodeck episode. Professor James Moriarty, created specifically to give Data, a villain, to best Data. So now you have a holographic character. Again, this shows the downsides of holograms, or at least the holodeck. Geordi LaForge asked the computer to create a villain that could best Data, specifically, not Sherlock Holmes, Data. So it gave the character, Professor Moriarty, knowledge that could best Data. So essentially created a sentient hologram that was aware, that started to become aware of who he was, where he was, and wanted to walk off the holodeck. His first episode is great. He is the actor that portrays him does a wonderful job as Professor Moriarty. He obviously take control of the Enterprise. Picard was like, "There's nothing we can do for you at this time. You are stuck on the holodeck," and he is defeated. But Picard says, "We won't kill you. We're going to save you until we can find a way to do this." It is then reactivated a couple years later by Lieutenant Barclay, accidentally, and then does the whole thing over again, takes control of the Enterprise, and starts to cycle up again until he can try the crew to get him off the holodeck. Which they do in a way. They trap him in this data cube that essentially continuously runs, so he believes he's off the holodeck. He's not. He's just in this storage cube, but again, his fate is left unknown. He briefly shows up as like a security measure for Data in season 3 of Picard, but I don't really count that. It's not him to a point. But Moriarty is absolutely memorable because, again, it shows the darkness, that it shows the absolute pitfalls of holographic technology. It can just create life just randomly if you choose the wrong command. He's beautifully acted. I love watching these episodes. They stand out to me, especially the ship in the bottle, where we haven't left the holodeck. We are in the holodeck, in the holodeck, in the holodeck. It's just like cross-eyed. But again, I love Moriarty as a villain, and I think I have to give him an A rank just because he bests the crew until Data is able to work it out and best him. So again, he is a great villain that I wish we got more of, or at least we learned his fate, especially when Voyager would come along with the mobile emitter. You'd hope that maybe they'd give him his freedom with they were able to replicate the mobile emitter. But again, I don't know if it's explored in the expanded universe. I'm not sure. It might have been explored in Star Trek Online's Path to 2409. Again, not sure, but a great character, great villain, not S tier, but great villain for me. Okay. Next up, we have possibly the best episode, one of the best two-parter episodes of TNG, and some might say television history, because it created one of the longest summers of television history. Locutus of Borg. Jean-Luc Picard assimilated by the Borg, using his knowledge of Starfleet to allow the Borg to essentially mow down Starfleet at Wolf 359, destroying 39 starships, thousands of lives lost, nearly conquering Earth, assimilating Earth. We didn't know if he was going to be pulled back, but that scene of him walking toward the view screen and identifying himself as, I am Locutus of Borg, it just chills every time. And the second part, obviously, where for most of that episode, Locutus is the primary antagonist, even after he's captured and on the Enterprise, is still saying, can communicate to the Borg here. You've done nothing to slow us down. It's so memorable, and Wolf 359 is such an impactful moment in Trek history. He is seen again in Emissary, the Deep Space Nine pilot. And then, of course, we see the demons it has created for Picard in Star Trek First Contact, where again, he is still haunted by being assimilated. And then in Star Trek Picard, it's explored even more with Jean-Luc and Liam Shaw, a survivor of Wolf 359 who can't even look at Picard without boiling up in rage and holding him responsible for all those deaths. So where does Locutus stand as an antagonist? He stands at an S. I mean, that was an impactful moment. It stayed in the Star Trek mythos. It is a pivotal moment, and he is solely remembered as well. Like, it tainted Picard's reputation. It's even brought up in the Drumhead. People still hold him accountable, or want to hold him accountable for all those deaths, even though it was not him. He was used, but the Locutus persona character is a wonderful antagonist. Because again, you could argue it's Dark Picard. I think that shies away from it, because the Borg persona is not like Dark Picard. It's not bringing out the darkness of Picard. It's essentially using Picard's knowledge, and it's his body as a shell and the collective speaking through him. So Locutus absolutely is an S-rank villain for sure, 100%. We're finally jumping back to Romulans now, which were reoccurring villains or antagonists in TNG's era because they reemerged at the end of season 1. But a reoccurring Romulan antagonist was Commander Tunnellock, who would pop up every now and then to be a foe for Picard, and would even show up in the series finale. All good things. Strangely enough, with an altered makeup, which is kind of noticeable considering his last 2 appearances. He's kind of got a little salt and pepper going on, whatnot, but his makeup changes there. I wonder if it was a rush job. Don't know, but it's fine. I love the actor, which his name does escape me. I do apologize, but I'm a big fan of Babylon 5, and he was the actor that plays Ambassador Jakar on Babylon 5 is the same actor that plays Commander Tomalak, and he's a wonderful actor. You absolutely get that he is a menace. I love him and Picard's interactions every single time that they meet. I believe it's like 3 times. In fact, his name is dropped because he's had so many encounters with the Enterprise that another Romulan commander mentions Tomalak, saying, Tomalak has mentioned you. We know how, your capabilities, such and such. So I'm not going to lie. I have to give Tomalak an A. We get a glimpse, like through Tomalak, we get a glimpse of what the Romulans are like, especially in his first appearance. Obviously secrecy, but he's still very protective of Romulan officers and crew members. Like, he crossed into Federation space to retrieve a Romulan that was picked up on the Enterprise that was dying, and then, of course, was relieved to learn that, a second Romulan in the so-called one-man craft was found. He's happy that he's alive and hasn't said anything. But again, he pops up every now and then. I love it when he does. And I wish we had gotten more of him, truly, because he is a great, great villain. But speaking of great Romulan villains, the one I mentioned earlier, Commander Sela, the daughter of an alternate timeline Tasha Yar and a Romulan commander who fancied her. We learned about the temporally displaced Tasha Yar from the parallel timeline, where she is captured and has given birth to Sela, who renounces her humanity when Tasha tries to escape with her. And Tasha is killed. Sela pretty much denounces all of humanity, going full Romulan. She would be a reoccurring villain several times throughout TNG. You couldn't see her features, but she was kept in the shadows. But if you listen closely, you could hear Denise Crosby giving the orders to brainwash LaForge in that episode. Again, I can't remember the name of it, but she was there. She was there during the Klingon Civil War, where she made her appearance. And then, of course, we got her again in reunification with Leonard Nimoy as Ambassador Spock. And she nearly conquered Vulcan, but she also was almost got the Klingons, the Duras family, to win the Klingon Civil War. So, again, great villain. Didn't get a lot of her. She shows up a lot in expanded media, which I can recommend. Like, her portrayal, her character arc through Star Trek Online is fantastic. She does appear in the IDW series featuring Captain Sisko, and then the spin-off Star Trek Defiant. She appears there again, wonderfully portrayed. But post anything, even New Picard, she doesn't show up, unfortunately. I believe they tried to get Denise Crosby back for Picard, for Star Trek Picard, but it just didn't work, which is a real shame because I'd like to have known the fate of Sela. But I've got to give her an A rank just because, again, the emotional turmoil by her mere existence, it plays on the crew of the Enterprise by being the daughter of Tasha Yar, where they were like, wait, she a whole temporally displaced, which again throws them for a loop. She comes nearly close to succeeding. And it's just interesting seeing a human Romulan character who was raised on Romulus, who's embraced Romulan, and she very much, like I said, comes very close. She has no love for humanity at all. I would have liked to have seen more of her to explore that character. Unfortunately, we don't. But again, her presence alone, I do believe, gets her the A rank, just because, again, the two-parters she was played major roles in, I do believe are impactful and grant her at least the A rank, at the very least. But using Sela as a jumping off point and a segue to the Klingon Civil War, we have Duras, a Klingon antagonist that initially accused Worf's father of betraying the Empire at Khitomer, where the Romulans attacked. It was believed Worf's father was at fault, and betrayed the Klingons. Turns out, nope, it was Duras's father. But Duras's house was powerful, wealthy, had great power over the Empire. So if he was denounced, it could plunge the Empire into civil war. So Worf had to accept this commendation, essentially banishment. He wouldn't be acknowledged as a Klingon, and his brother was sworn into secrecy, or Worf's brother Kurn was sworn into secrecy, and it showed just how much power and despicable this Klingon could get. And then it also gave us deeper Klingon politics, which was interesting, fascinating. We haven't really seen much of that outside of the original series, which again didn't give us a whole lot. TNG really explored the Klingon Empire and the homeworld there, and through Duras we got a good peek at that, of what kind of the powers that be and how that all played out. He would meet his end at Worf's blade after he killed Worf's mate Kalar for discovering all this. Worf took off his comm badge, his baldric, I think it's called, and beamed over to the Klingon ship, confronted him, fought him in one-on-one battle, and killed him. Just before he was during an attempt that it was they were at an attempt to choose the next Klingon High Chancellor, and Duras's name was up, but so was Gowron. Worf took Duras out of that race, so there was that. Gowron succeeds, and then of course, Duras is dead. But it very much, again, his standing, as you'll see in the next pick here. Again, I gotta give him an A rank. Actually, no, I think Duras deserves S, because he seriously was willing to challenge Picard, and I love Picard's line in. Picard was playing Worf's protector. Picard would take up the fight for Worf in Worf's place. Duras threatens Picard, and Picard just calmly looks at him and goes, "You may test that at your convenience." And Duras just kind of goes, "Okay." It's very much just, I love every time Duras appeared, because it showed exactly how corrupt the Klingons could get. It showed a whole other side of the Empire, where all through Worf we got honor and integrity and sometimes glory, but Worf was very honorable. And then we got, oh, not all Klingons are like this. There's layers here. Got it. So I gotta give Duras an S rank. I gotta give him an S rank. But speaking of Duras, as we found out when Gowron succeeded the Chancellor role, Duras apparently had sisters, Lursa and B'Etor, who vied for control and power. They introduced Duras's son, Gerard. Gerard, I think I'm saying his name right. Might not be, but anyway, they would show up a couple times throughout TNG, even popped up in DS9 once. After their loss at the Civil War, they kind of were scrounging up what they could to try and build back up their house's former glory and try to vie for control of the Empire again. Again, showing that not all Klingons are about honor and glory. Some of them are all just about power. So they would eventually show up in Star Trek Generations, the first TNG movie, as two of the primary antagonists of that film, and they would come very, very close. They actually succeeded in destroying the Enterprise D. So again, I want to give them an A rank because they did that, but I think I gotta go with B, because again, they're good villains, but they're also very one note. I did love the scene where they attempted to seduce Picard, which is bold to say the least. But again, after that initial episode, the two-parter, they would just pop up randomly, and they didn't held the same gravitas that they did. Even in DS9, they were just looking for weapons that they were willing to trade for latinum. And it very much was kind of like, wow, how the mighty have fallen. And in Generations, they command a old class bird of prey. And yeah, they essentially are helping the main antagonist of Generations, trying to get a weapon from him, but their bird of prey is hacked, destroyed. Again, as much as I give them points, I think their initial episode painted a very good picture of them as a villain, but then they just kind of fell off. And then in Generations, it's kind of like, we're here, we're familiar characters, but yeah. So I'm going to go with B. Good villains, good antagonists, but fall short. Just fall short. But the primary antagonist of Star Trek Generations, Dr. Tolian Soren, an El-Orian, long-lived. He was pulled from the Nexus by the Enterprise B. He would later pop up again in the 24th century, where he was doing some research into solar probes. But we found out his motivations were to try to get back to the Nexus. He would just go to be reunited with his family that were taken from the Borg. He would destroy whole systems, stars, to alter the course of the energy ribbon, the gateway into the Nexus, just so he could get back in there and be with his family again, essentially in paradise. And he went to great lengths. He kidnapped Geordi, essentially reprogrammed his visor so that the Duras sisters could view what he is seeing. He gave Picard and Kirk a worthy fight. He would then be responsible for the death of James Kirk. Pretty much, essentially. He didn't shoot Kirk in the back as much as the deleted alternate ending that definitely needed to be changed. But he gave us a line that he got engraved into a pocket watch that I think is just, it's a very hard line. Time is the fire which we burn. It's a predator that stalks us all our lives. It to me is like, again, I love Picard's take on it, that time is a companion that is there with us, guides us through our journey. I'm paraphrasing Picard's quote, but the Malcolm McDowell does such a great job as a villain, and as a villain here, that I'm not gonna lie, I want to give him an S rank. I think he does fall a little short, but he is a believable, like, I gotta give him A rank just because I do believe I gotta give him S. I gotta give him S because I think about it more and more, and I do believe that it's just the pain that drives this man, the price he's willing to pay, the depths he will go for his family, to be reunited with his family, and he doesn't care who he hurts. He doesn't care who he hurts. He doesn't care what he has to do. He promises the Duras sisters a trilithium-based weapon, which would just boost their power tenfold. So he doesn't care, and you kind of can relate to that, in that if you lost loved ones in such a horrific way, you were there with them in the Nexus, and he is pulled from that. Like, that would drive anyone insane. And he does such a great job. So yeah, I honestly think Dr. Tolian Soren is an S-rank villain. I'm just, that might be a little bit of a hot take, but I'm willing to put him there. Next up, we have the Borg Queen, introduced in Star Trek First Contact. I'm putting her here because this is where she was introduced, but again, she would then later become a Voyager antagonist, popping up 3 separate times, including the series finale. But here in First Contact, we are introduced to the concept of the Borg Queen, who creates order out of chaos, who is the driving force behind the collective. We would learn more in Voyager, but I would say as First Contact, as a TNG villain, the idea of the Borg Queen is interesting, to say the least, because, yeah, it's always been the Borg collective, and it's a hive mind. Someone looked at that hive mind. Oh, well, hives typically have queens. So, Borg Queen. Sure. Okay. She seduces Data, gives him bits of human flesh, which is creepy. Data, of course, is not swayed. He said he was tempted, but only for a couple milliseconds. But her death is, again, a little jarring. Just watching her flesh just melt off until she's a robotic skeleton is kind of jarring, to say the least. Her appearances in Voyager, I'm trying to also, I wanted to keep them separate. But again, I look at the Voyager antagonist list and I'm like, it's pretty stacked too. So I'll go ahead and count Voyager here too. She swayed Seven to return to the collective when we meet them in Dark Frontier. She is defeated again there. We see her again, a different version of the Borg Queen in Unimatrix Zero, where we find out that some Borg have this, they say defect, but every time they go into rejuvenation, they are themselves. They have their individuality. They're able to talk and converse with converse with fellow drones who have this defect and talk amongst themselves. But the moment regeneration is over, you're back to being just a mindless drone. But she discovers it, is willing to wipe out infected drones. Like, oh, there's one drone on this whole cube, gone. Just swat away the infection. I believe that is another episode in which she meets her end again. But then, of course, we see her again in Endgame. Sorry. I don't know why I'm getting titles and confused and whatnot. So apologies if it happens. But she discovers Voyager is close to a transwarp hub. She also picks up that future Janeway has appeared. Future Janeway has future technology that just blow up cubes with 1-2 hits. Also the ablative armor. We see this final confrontation with her and Janeway that we thought would destroy the collective. We would later find out it doesn't. But again, that I'm saving that talk for when we get to her. Get to that in the Picard or New Trek tier list. But overall, as a villain, I won't... Like, she does seem to have motives, but it's very much like she speaks for the Borg. She is a conduit for the collective. But it's hard to grasp. Like, obviously, they still have that to seek perfection. To create order out of chaos. It's hard for me to put a pin on it. I honestly want to say in terms of like just an antagonist, yeah, presence wise, she's got it nailed. But again, it's always the same thing with her. I gotta give her B because she's a good villain. Just one note. It's one note. Like, they want to, like, again, they just want to assimilate whatnot. It's the same spiel every time we see her. I'd say in First Contact, again, it's like great villain, what they were willing to do. Go back in time, assimilate Earth in the past, stop First Contact, and then just send a message out to the collective in the 21st century. The collective moves in, assimilates Earth, no defenses, gone. But obviously it didn't work, and it didn't work again. Expanded media showed how far the collective were willing to go, but again, we're not going to talk about that here. Because there are several other interpretations of the collective in expanded media, like Star Trek Hive, an IDW miniseries that they did that was supposed to be give the Borg collective an ending, I guess. Then you have the Destiny trilogy, or the TNG relaunch that started showing more Borg there again, but that doesn't impact my rating here. Again, I just feel like she is a good antagonist, but very one note. I almost want to put her in C, but I feel like just from her Voyager appearances, it does kind of knock her up a bit. They puts her up to B in a way, but not by much So, like, I almost want to put her in C, but I feel like she does have like a good presence and good standing, and she's written, but it's just one note. That's my problem with her. It's just very one note. Moving on to our next villains, antagonists from Star Trek Insurrection, Raffle, the Sona, who it was cast out from the Baku, has taken it very personally, and is helping Starfleet, oink, to collect the metaphasic radiation from the planet's rings that the Baku have settled on, that has essentially become a fountain of youth. He has essentially lied to Starfleet, saying that they can gather it and turn it into healing factors. They try to stay young by getting their faces and stuff stretched out, which is just kind of insane to me. I feel like he's probably one of Star Trek's most pettiest villains. I'm not gonna lie. You kicked me out, I'm going to kill you all because I have to stretch my face to be young. I mean, seriously, when it becomes known that the Sona and the Baku are the same race, the Admiral, who again is the secondary antagonist, who we'll talk to, kind of goes, oh. And we learn that the Sona were supplying, like the insurrection takes place during the Dominion War. The Sona were supplying the Dominion with Ketracel White, the stuff the Jem'Hadar need to survive. And we're completely okay with allying these people because they can get us this metaphasic radiation. Sure, okay. It's like, okay. But yeah, he doesn't care. He's like, he doesn't even think he allied with the Federation just for a means to an end. He cares about his people, does not care about anyone else. The Sona are apparently, they have slaves or species that work for them. I don't know if I should use the word slaves. I think they're enslaved. I think that was said. I can't remember. It's been a minute since I've seen Insurrection. But yeah, they're not good people. They essentially, it's a blood feud, and like I'd like him as a villain, just in general. And the actor that portrays him does a wonderful job. I do remember that whole scene in Picard's ready room when Picard would not return his people, and he's like, "We're gonna hold them," and he just goes, "Yeah!" Starts bleeding out of because his stretches ripped, and he just full on, the Admiral there, I will fire on you until you give me my people. I will destroy you. And he even does. He orders his ships to go after the Enterprise to silence them. Like, he is extremely petty, and I can respect that. I am not above being petty for some reasons, but still, I don't hold a candle to him. I'm giving him an A rank. He's not an S rank villain by any means, but I love him as a character and I love him as a villain. He is absolutely an A rank villain. We come up next to the secondary antagonist of Star Trek Insurrection, Admiral Dougherty, who was doing this. Is another Badmiral in the long line of Badmirals that we've got in Star Trek. Because he was doing this for the Federation. He orders the Enterprise out when he realizes Picard understands that they were trying to move 600 people. It's just 600 people. Picard throws it in his face that we're violating the principles of the Federation. Dougherty's like, nope, I don't need any of this sanctimonious crap. Get out. And when he realizes that he's been betrayed by the Sona, who were just using this as an excuse to wipe these people out, they couldn't get the radiation. He is killed graphically by Raffle by strapping him to one of those face stretcher chairs, and you watch as his face just contorts and is stretched apart, very like just ooh, and it's just it's kind of like ooh, but I sense that I want to believe he had his heart in the right place, but again, I truly believe in this instance, Section 31 might have been involved here, or at the very least, this was a Admiral just trying to get a step up. And he I gotta give him a C. He is meh. He is meh because, again, once he's confronted that the Sona weren't actually going to do what he wanted or pretty much make do on their promise, he immediately is like, this was all for the Federation. I was trying to do this for all the good. He immediately tries to backpedal, and Rothel kills him just to get him out of the picture. He essentially had to be Picard's superior officer and order him about, but obviously Picard takes off his rank pips and just like, nope. Screw this. We're doing this off the books. So it's very much like, and he thinks he can order Riker to turn around, and we as the audience go, no, you can't. No, you can't. So he has very little power here. He's just a secondary antagonist that does nothing. That does nothing. So he is C rank at best. He's there, but yeah. Finally, the last TNG villain from before Picard. I want to make that clear. That's a whole separate thing. Tom Hardy's Shinzon, Picard's clone that was abandoned as a child and sent to Remus. In the dilithium mines, he is raised. Reman essentially fights in the Dominion War, as we later learn off screen, and then does a coup d'etat and wipes out the Romulan Praetor and most of the Senate and takes power. He has Ron Perlman as his viceroy, which is badass. His ship is this massive Reman's Warbird, the Scimitar, which is just a beast of a ship that also has a Thalaron generator. Thalaron radiation is extremely deadly, can just, if it's expelled in any particular means, it will just go, it'll go and wipe out life. And he has every intent to wipe out Earth. Again, I believe this is now another chance of a dark, twisted version of a character. Tom Hardy beautifully portrays a young Picard that was raised partially, that fights what he wants. He needs Picard to maintain his stability as a clone. He's very driven. Like, I do like him as a character and as a villain. I do think it falls apart a little bit towards the end. He is responsible for the death of Data in a way, which is heartbreaking. Again, we see his drive when Picard impales him in defense. He just pulls it forward so he can get close to Picard and just look at him. We will die together, which again shows that Shinzon does not screw around. I think I'm going to give Shinzon an A rank because what we hear about him is mostly like off screen, and his presence is very like, it's very like very much like, I'm paying attention to what you're saying and what you're doing. Also, the one thing that almost wants to knock it down to B is his weird obsession with Troy, which I don't quite get. It's never explained, but he forces himself mentally through his viceroy onto Troy, at least in one primary scene, which is very, even for Star Trek, I think almost crossed a line to a point. There was a second scene that was cut that wasn't as graphic, but again, shows this weird obsession, which is just icky, but it shows the depravity of this character. That showed that this character, while has gravitas and has, like, I want to watch what you're doing, there's very much something that I very much just do not want to like. Like, I'm very much driven to not like you as a person. So, which I think most antagonists should have, most villains should have, is that they need to have qualities that you want to like about them, but then they also need to be reminded they could be very despicable and you shouldn't like them. And I think Shinzon encapsulates that. Is he S rank? Absolutely not. I don't think he's S rank at all, just because of how depraved and what, like, the ickiness of Troy, I think keeps him from S among a few other things. But I do believe that he belongs in A rank. As bad as Nemesis, or you shouldn't say as bad. as much as I don't like Nemesis per se, I can sit and watch Nemesis and enjoy it. But again, as the TNG crew's at the time last outing falls short, and Shinzon, I think, as a Picard clone, I feel like it could have been handled better. But I do think Shinzon as a character, as an antagonist, is an A rank. And that covers my TNG antagonists, and we are nearly at an hour long. Holy cow, I didn't expect to go that long. Oh, okay. So here is our current standings as of right now. S is feeling a little heavy. A is a little heavy. I'm looking at DS9, and well, I feel like if you know me, or if you're familiar with Deep Space Nine, I think you have an idea of where we're going with this. So very much looking forward to that. That'll be its own episode. Voyager is probably going to be its own episode. Enterprise will probably be its own video as well. And then probably, I don't know if New Trek will be its own episode, its own video as well. Just judging from the amount that's there, we'll see. I might be able to combine Enterprise and the J.J. Abrams, or at least the Kelvin timeline. Shouldn't call them the J.J. Abrams films, because Star Trek Beyond wasn't J.J. Abrams. But I should be able to combine possibly those two into one. Just because there is a jumping off point between the Kelvin timeline films and then where Discovery picks up. So, which I can't wait to talk about those. I'm definitely going to feel heat there. But anyway, so we have DS9 coming up next. You'll have to give me some time to render that out and get that out. So that should hopefully come not too long after this recording, but we'll see. So folks, I thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion so far. Please keep any comments civil. I appreciate it. Like I said, this is just my personal opinions. I'm just, again, gentle reminder, I was paid to do this by my friends, specifically Knight Halcyon, who we've shared quite the banters and differing opinions of Star Trek of late. So my friends challenged me to do this, so here I am doing it. So let's just try and keep civil here. But yeah, stay tuned for the Deep Space Nine antagonist tier list. I can't wait to discuss a lot of that. I'm sure a lot of discussion will be had there. But yeah, so if you liked it, please hit like. And if you want to see more, please hit subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when I upload or when I go live. I go live 3 days a week. I play a lot of games. I just like to have a nice chill environment, and entertain people. That's my sole purpose of doing this, is entertainment. So as we say at the end, I shall see you all next cycle. This is Zayun, out.